Thomas Callahan's rifle was already raised when he saw her eyes. Not the eyes of a thief. The eyes of a mother who'd stopped begging for mercy 3 towns ago. She didn't move, didn't speak. Just pressed 7 shivering children, tighter against the barn wall, her bloodied hand covering the smallest one's mouth. The lantern shook in Thomas's grip. Outside, snow buried the Montana territory in silence. Inside, his dead wife's voice whispered the last words she ever spoke. "Promise me, you won't let this ranch die empty." He lowered the rifle. But before we continue, if you love stories of redemption and second chances, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Comment your city below so I can see how far Sarah's story travels. Now let's see what Thomas did next, because his choice would change everything. The woman flinched when Thomas set the rifle against the post. "Don't," she whispered. Her voice cracked like creek ice in March. "Don't call the law." Thomas studied her. 30, maybe younger, but worn down past her years. Dark hair stuck to her face with sweat despite the cold. Her dress, if you could call it that, hung in strips. The fabric was so thin he could see her ribs through the tears. Blood soaked her left sleeve from shoulder to wrist. Behind her, 7 faces stared at him. The oldest couldn't be more than 12. The youngest was maybe 3, thumb jammed in his mouth, eyes glazed with fever. "How long you been here?" Thomas asked. "Since nightfall." She shifted and pain flashed across her face. "We'll be gone by dawn." "Can you walk?" She didn't answer. The 12-year-old girl stepped forward instead. Tall for her age, with her mama's dark eyes and a jawline that said she'd seen too much. "She carried my brother 9 miles, the girl said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. "Carried him the whole way while the rest of us walked. She ain't carried nothing since except that baby." She pointed to the 3-year-old. Thomas crouched down, keeping his movements slow. The woman pulled the children back. "I ain't here to hurt you," he said. "But that arm needs tending, and these young'uns need warmth. House is 50 yards, fire's already going. We can't pay." "Didn't ask you to." The woman stared at him. Her throat worked, but no sound came out. Finally she whispered, "Why?" Thomas stood. "Because it's November in Montana, and you got 7 kids half froze. Don't need a better reason than that." He picked up the lantern and walked toward the barn door. Behind him, silence. Then small footsteps. He didn't turn around, just kept walking through the snow toward the house. By the time he reached the porch, all 8 of them were following. Inside, the fire was low. Thomas stoked it high, then pulled every blanket he owned from the chest his wife had painted yellow. He spread them on the floor near the hearth. The children collapsed onto them like dropped stones. The woman stayed by the door swaying. Her face had gone gray. "Sit," Thomas said. "I can stand." "You'll fall." She sat, slow like her bones might shatter. Thomas brought water bread, the last of yesterday's stew. The children ate without speaking, their eyes tracking his every move. The oldest girl ate 3 bites, then passed her bowl to the boy beside her. Thomas fetched another bowl. When the woman tried to lift her spoon, her hand wouldn't close. The spoon clattered to the floor. Thomas knelt beside her. "Let me see that arm." "It's fine." "You're bleeding through your sleeve." She turned her face away. "It don't matter." "It does to me." Something in his voice made her look at him. Really look. Her eyes were green, he realized. The kind of green that reminded him of spring grass. The grass Margaret used to lay in, laughing back when laughter was something that happened in this house. "Why do you care?" the woman asked. "Lost my wife 2 years back. Cancer took her slow. Watched her waste away in that bed over there while I stood around useless." He nodded toward the small room off the kitchen. "Maybe I can't fix what's already broken, but I can stop you from bleeding out on my floor." She didn't fight him after that. He cut the sleeve away. The wound was deep, ragged, infected. She'd wrapped it with strips of her own petticoat, but the fabric was black with dried blood. "What did this?" he asked. "Fence wire. Tore it climbing over." "Running from someone?" Her jaw tightened. "Always." Thomas cleaned the wound with whiskey. She didn't make a sound, but her breathing went shallow and her eyes squeezed shut. When he started stitching, the oldest girl moved closer. "I can hold her," the girl said. Thomas shook his head. "She's stronger than both of us combined. She'll hold herself." And she did. 17 stitches. She didn't cry, didn't whimper, just gripped the chair arm so hard the wood cracked. When Thomas finished, he wrapped her arm in clean cloth and sat back. "You got a name?" "Sarah." "These your children?" "Some." She looked at the 7 sleeping forms curled by the fire. "Some I picked up along the way. Their folks died or left or got too mean to live with. Seemed wrong to leave them." "So you just collected them?" "They collected me." Sarah's voice softened. "Word gets around. Woman traveling alone don't hit kids shares her food. They started following. I tried to turn them away at first, but—" She stopped. "But you couldn't." "No." Thomas stood and poured coffee, black the way Margaret used to make it. He handed a cup to Sarah. She took it with her good hand, and for the first time since he found her, something like hope flickered across her face. "Where you headed?" he asked. "West, far as the mountains led us." "Running from what?" "My brother-in-law." She said it flat, like stating a fact about weather. "After my husband died, Clayton decided I was his property. When I wouldn't—" She stopped again, staring into the coffee. "When I said no, he told the whole county I stole from him. Put a price on my head. $50. $50 for what?" "Theft, vagrancy, immorality." Her laugh was bitter. "Take your pick." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Outside wind rattled the shutters. Inside, one of the children whimpered in sleep. The oldest girl, Sarah's daughter he assumed, reached out and pulled the child closer without waking. "You planning to turn me in?" Sarah asked. "No." "Why not $50 could buy a lot?" "Could," Thomas agreed. "But I don't need money bad enough to sell a woman who carried a sick child 9 miles through snow." Sarah's throat worked. She set down the coffee before he could see her hands shake. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. Town'll know you're here by morning. Miss Agatha Winslow's got eyes like a hawk and a tongue like a bullwhip. Once she sees smoke from 2 chimneys instead of 1, questions'll start. Then we'll leave before dawn. You can't walk 9 feet, let alone 9 miles. I've walked worse. Not with that arm you haven't." Thomas leaned forward. "Listen, I got space. Barn's warm if the roof don't leak. House is warmer. You and the young'uns can stay till that wound heals, and you're strong enough to travel proper." Sarah stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." "What if I am a thief?" "Then I'll lock up my valuables." "What if Clayton comes looking?" "Then he'll find me instead of you." The words hung in the air between them. Outside, a coyote howled. Sarah's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back fast. "I can't pay you," she said again. "Didn't ask." "What do you want from me?" Thomas met her eyes. "Nothing. Maybe some company. Maybe some noise in a house that's been too quiet for too long. Maybe just to do something Margaret would have wanted me to do." Sarah looked at the sleeping children, at the fire, at the rough wooden walls that somehow felt safer than any place she'd been in years. "1 week, she said finally. "Just till I'm steady." 1 week, Thomas agreed, though they both knew it was a lie. Morning came cold and pale. Thomas woke before dawn, old habit, and found Sarah already up, trying to sweep the floor one-handed. She moved stiff, awkward pain written in every line of her body. "Sit down," he said. "I can help. You can rest." "I don't know how." Thomas took the broom from her. "Then it's time you learned." The children woke slow, yawning and stretching like barn cats. The smallest boy, the sick one, still felt hot to the touch. Thomas made oatmeal thick and plain and watched them eat like they'd never seen food before. The oldest girl caught his eye. "Thank you, mister." "Thomas, and you're welcome, miss." "Emma." She had her mother's eyes, but something harder in them. Something that said she'd been the adult long before she should have been. "That's my brother James." She pointed to the 9-year-old boy with the freckles. "The little ones are Anna, Samuel, and Benjamin. The sick one's Michael. Those two," she nodded at 2 rail-thin boys who might have been twins, "are Daniel and Joseph. They ain't blood, but they're ours now." Thomas counted again. 7. Just like the title would say. 7 reasons Sarah couldn't run fast enough. 7 anchors keeping her tied to danger. "Well," Thomas said, "reckon we better get Michael's fever down. Emma, fetch me the willow bark from the shelf. Sarah, you drink this." He handed her a cup of chamomile tea mixed with honey. "What is it?" "Medicine." "Drink." She drank. By mid-morning, the house had found a rhythm. The children explored carefully, touching things like they expected them to disappear. Thomas showed James how to split kindling. Emma helped Sarah to the porch so she could sit in weak sunlight. That's when they saw the rider. Miss Agatha Winslow coming up the path on her gray mare spine, straight as a fence post, face pinched like she'd been sucking lemon since birth. Sarah went rigid. "Who's that?" "Trouble," Thomas muttered. He stepped off the porch to meet her. Agatha reined in her horse and stared down at him, eyes sharp behind wire spectacles. "Thomas Callahan. Wasn't expecting to see smoke from your place this early." "Fire don't care what time it is, Miss Agatha." "No, I suppose not." Her gaze slid past him to the porch, to Sarah, to the children peering out the windows. Her mouth tightened. "Seems you've taken in guests." "Seems I have." "Strangers." "People." "People?" Agatha repeated slowly. "People with no home, no means, and if gossip's to be believed, a rather colorful past." Thomas's jaw set. "Gossip ain't gospel, Miss Agatha." "No, but it's rarely smoke without fire." She dismounted, smoothing her skirts. "I'll need to speak with that woman." "She's resting." "I'm sure she is." Agatha moved toward the porch. Thomas stepped in her way. "Miss Agatha, with respect, turn around and go home." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? These folks are under my roof. That makes them my concern, not yours." "Your concern?" Agatha's voice rose. "Thomas, that woman is wanted. There's a price on her head for theft and abandonment. There's lies on her head, put there by a man who couldn't take no for an answer." Agatha's face flushed. "You don't know that." "I know enough." "You know nothing." She stepped closer, voice dropping to something almost kind. "Thomas, I understand. You're lonely. Margaret's been gone 2 years, and this house is too quiet. But taking in a criminal and 7 children who aren't yours, it's not Christian charity. It's foolishness." "Maybe." Thomas tipped his hat back. "But it's my foolishness. And last I checked, this was still my land." Behind him, Sarah stood. Slow, unsteady but upright. Emma moved to her side, and the other children followed, forming a line on the porch like small soldiers. Agatha stared at them. At Sarah's bandaged arm, at the children's hollow cheeks and threadbare clothes. Something flickered across her face. Pity maybe, or shame, but it hardened quick. "The town will hear about this," she said. "I expect they will. They'll come. Let them." Agatha mounted her horse. Before she rode off, she looked at Sarah one more time. "I hope you're worth his ruin, girl, because that's what you'll bring him." Then she was gone, dust rising behind her like a curse. Sarah sank back into the chair. Her face had gone white. "I should leave." No. Thomas. No. He turned to face her. I didn't pull you out of that barn to watch you run yourself to death. You stay. We'll handle whatever comes. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you risk everything for people you don't even know? Thomas looked at the children. At Emma standing fierce and protective. At little Michael still fevered, but alive. At Sarah herself broken, hunted, but somehow still fighting. Because Margaret and I wanted children, he said quietly. Tried for years. Never happened. Then she got sick, and that was that. He paused. Maybe I'm doing this for her. Maybe I'm doing it for me. Or maybe I'm just tired of letting good people suffer because it's easier than standing up. He met Sarah's eyes. Either way, you're staying. At least till that arm heals and Michael's fever breaks. After that, you decide. But right now, you ain't running. You're resting. Sarah stared at him. Then slowly, she nodded. The children exhaled like they'd been holding their breath for miles. And Thomas turned back to the woodpile, aware that he'd just painted a target on his back. But for the first time since Margaret died, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt needed. That afternoon, Thomas found Emma behind the barn, teaching the younger children how to stack firewood. She moved with quiet efficiency, showing them how to angle each piece so the pile wouldn't collapse. When she saw him, she straightened, wiping her hands on her skirt. "Didn't ask you to do that," Thomas said. "Didn't ask permission." Emma's chin lifted. "We ain't freeloaders." "Never said you were." "That lady did. The one on the horse." Thomas leaned against the fence. "Miss Agatha says a lot of things. Most of 'em are fear dressed up as righteousness." Emma studied him. "You really gonna let us stay?" "Said I would." "People say things. Don't mean they keep promises." "I keep mine." She didn't answer right away, just turned back to the woodpile, adjusting a log that didn't need adjusting. Finally, she said, "Mama don't trust easy. She's been hurt bad by men who acted nice at first." "I ain't acting." "How do I know that?" Thomas met her eyes. "You don't. Not yet. But I figure time'll show you what words can't." Emma nodded slowly. Behind her, little Samuel dropped a log on his foot and started crying. She was there in an instant, scooping him up, checking his toes, murmuring comfort. The boy wrapped his arms around her neck and buried his face in her shoulder. "How old are you?" Thomas asked. 13 come January. "You shouldn't have to carry all this." "Somebody has to." Emma set Samuel down gently. "Mama does what she can, but she's been running so long she forgot how to rest, and these little ones, they need more than she can give right now." "What about what you need?" Emma's face went carefully blank. "I'm fine." "Emma." "I said I'm fine." She turned away. "We best get this wood stacked before dark." Thomas let her be. Some wounds couldn't be reached with words. Inside the house, Sarah sat at the kitchen table trying to peel potatoes one-handed. She'd managed 3 before Thomas walked in. The knife kept slipping from her grip. "Let me," he said. "I can do it." "Sarah, I can do it." Her voice cracked. The knife clattered to the table. She stared at her bandaged arm, at her trembling hand, at the potatoes, mocking her uselessness. "Damn it!" Thomas pulled out a chair and sat. "You carried a sick child 9 miles. Cut yourself some mercy." "Mercy don't cook supper." "No, but I do." He picked up the knife. "Tell me about your husband." Sarah went still. "Why?" "Because you loved him once, I reckon. And because talking about the dead sometimes makes 'em less heavy to carry." She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she spoke, voice low. "Daniel was kind. Quiet kind like you. Worked a small farm outside Billings. We married when I was 17. He was 23. Her fingers traced the wood grain. We had 3 good years. Then the drought hit. Crops failed. Bank came calling. Daniel took work at his brother's ranch to pay debts. Clayton's ranch. Yeah. Sarah's jaw tightened. Clayton always looked at me wrong, even before Daniel died, like I was something he'd own someday. Daniel saw it too. They fought about it once. Daniel told him to keep his eyes to himself, or he'd put him out. What happened to Daniel? Horse kicked him in the chest, broke his ribs, punctured his lung. He lasted 3 days. Sarah's voice went flat. Clayton showed up at the funeral, stood too close, told me I didn't have to worry, because he'd take care of me now. Said a woman alone couldn't make it. But you didn't want his care. I wanted him gone. I wanted my husband back. I wanted... She stopped, swallowing hard. Doesn't matter what I wanted. I told Clayton no. He said I'd change my mind once the money ran out. When I still said no, he got mean. Started telling folks I stole his cattle to sell. Said I was unfit, immoral, dangerous. Put that bounty on me. Thomas set down the knife. How'd you get Emma? She's mine. Daniel's and mine. Only child we had before he died. The others I found them after. Joseph and Daniel, the twins, their mama died of fever. Their daddy drank himself to death 6 months later. James was working mines at 8 years old till the shaft collapsed. Killed everyone but him. Anna's folks beat her. Michael's mama left him at a church. Benjamin. Sarah's voice softened. Benjamin's mama died giving birth. She was my friend. I promised I'd keep him safe. And you have. Have I? Sarah looked toward the window where the children played. I'm dragging them across Montana in winter with a madman hunting us. Some safety. You're alive. They're alive. That's more than most could manage. Sarah turned back to him. Why do you keep saying things like that? Like what? Like I'm doing something good instead of just surviving. Maybe survival is good. Maybe choosing to keep going when everything says quit, that's the bravest thing there is. Sarah's eyes filled. She blinked fast, looking away. I should check on Michael. She stood too quick. Her vision grayed and she swayed. Thomas caught her elbow. Easy. I'm fine. You ain't fine. You're exhausted and half-starved and trying to hold up 7 kids on one good arm. He guided her back to the chair. Sit. I'll check on Michael. Thomas. Sit. She sat. Michael was sleeping when Thomas entered the small room where the children had made a nest of blankets. The boy's forehead still felt warm, but not burning like before. His breathing came easier. Thomas dampened a cloth and laid it across the child's brow. James appeared in the doorway. Is he gonna die? No. How do you know? Because his fever's breaking and he's got people who love him. That counts for something. James nodded, unconvinced. My mama died even though people loved her. I know. Sometimes love ain't enough to stop death, but it's enough to make life worth fighting for. The boy thought about that. You loved your wife. Very much. Does it stop hurting? Thomas looked at him. 9 years old and already carrying grief too big for his shoulders. No. But it stops being the only thing you feel. James sat on the floor near Michael. I don't remember my daddy. He left before I could talk. Mama said he couldn't handle being poor. He picked at a thread on his sleeve. Am I bad for not missing him? No, you're just honest. Miss Agatha said we're bad luck. Said Mama's collecting trouble. Thomas's jaw tightened. Miss Agatha's scared. Scared people say cruel things to feel bigger. Are you scared of us? No. Why not everyone else is? Because I know the difference between danger and need. You kids ain't dangerous. You're just hungry and tired and wanting somewhere safe. Ain't nothing scary about that. James looked up at him. Will you really let us stay? As long as you need. What if that lady comes back with the sheriff? Then we'll handle it. What if Clayton comes? Thomas met the boy's eyes. Then I'll handle him. Something eased in James's face. Not fear leaving, just someone else agreeing to carry part of it. By evening, the house smelled like potatoes and salt pork. The children gathered around the table, watching Thomas dish out portions. He gave them each extra, ignoring the fact that his own plate looked sparse. Sarah noticed. That ain't enough for you? I ate earlier. Liar. He smiled faint. Eat, Sarah. You need strength more than I do. She didn't argue. Just ate slow, making each bite last, her eyes tracking the children to make sure they had enough. After supper, Emma cleared plates without being asked. Anna helped, moving careful like she expected punishment for dropping something. Thomas watched her flinch when he reached past her for the dishpan. I ain't gonna hit you, he said quietly. Anna froze. I know. Do you? She didn't answer. Just scrubbed a plate so hard Thomas thought it might break. Later, when the children settled near the fire, Thomas found Sarah on the porch again. She stood in the cold without a shawl, staring at nothing. You'll catch your death, he said. Maybe that'd be easier. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Sarah's voice was tired. I'm so tired, Thomas. Tired of running. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of pretending I'm strong enough to keep them all safe when I know I'm not. You are. I'm not. I'm just stubborn. There's a difference. Thomas stepped beside her. Margaret used to say the same thing. When the cancer got bad, she'd tell me she wasn't brave, just too mean to quit. I told her it was the same thing. She laughed. Said I didn't know the difference between courage and spite. What did you say? I said I didn't care. Long as she kept breathing, she could call it whatever she wanted. Sarah looked at him. Did it work? No, she died anyway. Thomas's voice roughened. But those extra months, they mattered. Every morning she woke up mattered. Every smile, every word, every breath. It mattered because she chose it. I didn't choose this. I chose Daniel. I chose a quiet life. This. She gestured at the house, the barn, the darkness beyond. This chose me. Then choose what comes next. Clayton's hunting the woman who ran. Be the woman who stops running. I can't fight him. You don't have to. I will. Sarah turned to face him fully. Why? Why would you fight my battles? Because someone should have fought for you a long time ago. The words hung between them. Sarah's breath hitched, but she didn't cry. Just wrapped her good arm around herself and looked away. I don't know how to let people help me, she whispered. Then learn, same way I'm learning how to let people back in. Inside, one of the children laughed, probably James showing the twins some trick with string. The sound floated out warm and easy, filling space that had been silent too long. Sarah smiled faint. They like you. I like them. Emma's protective. She'll test you. Already has. And I figure I'll pass eventually. She just needs time to believe I'm not pretending. Sarah nodded. Time. That's what we all need. Just a little more time. Then take it. Take all you need. This house ain't going anywhere. That night, Sarah slept in Thomas's bed while he took the floor near the fire. The children piled together like puppies, breathing soft and even. Thomas lay awake, listening to the sounds of a house that remembered life. 3 days passed. Michael's fever broke. Sarah's arm began healing. The children grew braver, laughing, more flinching less. Emma started smiling when she thought no one was watching. James built a slingshot and practiced shooting pebbles at fence posts. Anna sang while she swept. Thomas chopped wood and mended fences and tried not to notice how Sarah looked in the morning light, how her hair fell loose when she brushed it, how her laugh sounded rusty but real, how she moved through his house like she belonged there. On the 4th day, the town came calling. Not Miss Agatha this time. Sheriff Warren Hayes, 45 and tired, riding up with 2 deputies and a look that said he'd rather be anywhere else. Thomas met them in the yard. Sarah stayed on the porch, Emma at her side. The other children watched through windows. "Sheriff," Thomas said evenly. "Thomas." Hayes dismounted slow. "You know why I'm here." "Reckon I do." "There's a warrant for a woman named Sarah Bennett. Theft, abandonment, vagrancy." Hayes pulled a folded paper from his coat. "Clayton Bennett posted bounty. Says she stole property and ran." "Property meaning what?" "Livestock, money, personal effects." "He's lying," Hayes sighed. "That ain't for me to decide. Law says I bring her in, judge sorts it out. And if she don't want to go, then I got a problem." Hayes glanced at Sarah. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me, peaceful like. You'll get a fair trial." "No, she won't." Emma's voice cut sharp. "Clayton owns half the county. He'll own the judge too." Hayes looked uncomfortable. "Girl, I can't." "Can't what? Can't admit you're about to hand an innocent woman to a man who beats his own brother to death?" Sarah grabbed Emma's arm. "Emma, stop." "No." Emma pulled free. "I'm tired of stopping. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of watching you bleed and starve and pretend everything's fine when it ain't." She turned to Hayes. "You want the truth? Clayton Bennett tried to force himself on my mama after my daddy died. When she said no, he spread lies. Now he's using you to finish what he started, and you're gonna let him because it's easier than standing up." The deputies shifted uncomfortably. Hayes's face flushed. "Emma." Sarah's voice broke. "It's true, Mama. You know it is. We all know it." Emma's eyes blazed. "And if you take her, Sheriff, you ain't upholding law. You're just another coward afraid to do what's right." Silence crashed down. Hayes stared at Emma like she'd slapped him. Behind him, one of the deputies, young maybe 20, looked sick. "Is that true?" the young deputy asked. "About Clayton?" Hayes didn't answer. "Sheriff," the deputy pressed. "Is it true?" "Gossip ain't evidence," Hayes said finally. "But you heard the gossip." Thomas stepped forward. "You heard what Clayton is, what he does, and you're still gonna take her back to him. I got a job. Your job is justice. This ain't it." Hayes's hand moved to his gun. Not drawing, just resting there. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Thomas. Or what, you'll shoot me for protecting a woman and 7 children. I'll arrest you for obstruction." "Then do it." Thomas didn't move. "Arrest me, take me in, but you ain't touching her." The young deputy spoke up again. "Sheriff, maybe we should investigate." "We ain't investigators." Hayes's voice hardened. "We're lawmen. The warrant's legal. We follow it." "Even when it's wrong?" Thomas asked quietly. Hayes met his eyes. For a moment something passed between them. Recognition maybe, or shame. Then Hayes looked away. "Step aside, Thomas." "No, I don't want to hurt you." "Then don't." Hayes drew his gun. Slow, deliberate. The deputies followed suit. 3 barrels pointed at Thomas's chest. Sarah moved, fast despite her injury. She stepped off the porch, putting herself between Thomas and the guns. "Don't," she said. Her voice shook but held. "Don't hurt him. I'll go. Just don't hurt him." "Sarah." Thomas reached for her. "It's all right." She looked back at him, eyes wet. "You tried. That's more than anyone else did. Thank you." "I ain't letting them take you." "You don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Hayes moved forward. "Ma'am, put your hands." The gunshot cracked like thunder. Everyone froze. Hayes spun. On the ridge above the ranch, 3 riders sat silhouetted against the sky. The lead rider held a smoking pistol. Even from a distance, Thomas recognized him. Clayton Bennett, come to collect what he thought was his. Clayton spurred his horse down the slope. His men followed, rifles drawn. He pulled up 20 feet from the sheriff, grinning like a cat with a cornered mouse. "Sheriff Hayes." Clayton tipped his hat mockingly. "Appreciate you doing my work for me." Hayes frowned. "This is official business, Clayton. You got no place here." "That woman's my business. She's my brother's widow. My responsibility. She's a fugitive. I'm taking her to jail." "No need. I'll handle it from here." Clayton dismounted, eyes fixed on Sarah. "Hello, Sarah. Been a long time." Sarah didn't answer, just stepped back closer to Thomas. Clayton's smile widened. "Still playing shy, after dragging Daniel's name through the mud, after stealing from me." "I never stole nothing," Sarah said quietly. "No. Then where's the money Daniel left you? Where's the silver, the deed to the farm?" "You know damn well Daniel died broke. The bank took everything." "That's a lie." Clayton's voice rose. "You took it. You and that bastard daughter of yours took it and ran like the thief you are." Emma lunged. Thomas caught her before she reached Clayton, holding her back as she struggled. "Let me go." "Emma, no. He killed my daddy. Everyone knows it. He kicked that horse into him on purpose, and everyone's too scared to say it." Clayton's face went cold. "Careful, girl. Slander's a crime." "So's murder." The tension snapped taut. Clayton's hand moved to his gun. So did his men's. Thomas pushed Emma behind him, putting himself between her and the guns. Hayes stepped forward. "That's enough. Everyone calm down." "Ain't nothing calm about this." Thomas's voice was steel. "You came to arrest an innocent woman. He came to claim property that ain't his. And now you're all standing on my land pointing guns at children. That how Montana law works now?" Hayes looked between them. Thomas unarmed and unmoved. Clayton armed and eager. Sarah and Emma terrified but defiant. The other children, faces pressed to windows, watching everything fall apart. "Clayton," Hayes said slowly, "go home. I'll bring her in proper. I want her now." "That ain't how—" "I said now." Clayton drew his pistol fully. "She's mine. Daniel married her. Daniel died, that makes her my concern. And I'm taking her home where she belongs." "Over my dead body," Thomas said. Clayton's smile turned vicious. "That can be arranged." He raised his gun. Sarah screamed, and Pastor Silas Harper's voice rang out like a bell. "Put it down, Clayton." Everyone turned. The pastor stood at the edge of the property, holding his Bible in one hand and a shotgun in the other. Behind him, 10 men from town formed a line. Farmers, shopkeepers, blacksmiths, men with families and faces Thomas recognized from Sunday service. They were all armed. "Pastor," Clayton said slowly, "this ain't church business. This is my flock. That makes it my business." Silas walked forward, steady and calm. "You've terrorized this woman long enough. Spread lies, filed false charges, tried to buy justice like it's cattle. Ends now. You can't stop me. I got the law on my side." Silas looked at Hayes. "Do you, Sheriff, you really planning to side with a man who killed his own brother?" Hayes went pale. There's no proof." "There's testimony. 6 witnesses saw Clayton kick that horse. They were too afraid to speak up before. They ain't afraid now." Silas gestured to the men behind him. "Tell him Marcus." An older man stepped forward, gray-haired, weathered hands scarred from ranch work. "I saw it. Saw Clayton spook that horse on purpose. Saw Daniel go down. Heard Clayton laugh about it after." "Liar," Clayton snarled. "I saw it too," another man said. Then another. Then another. 6 voices. 6 witnesses. 6 men finally choosing truth over fear. Hayes lowered his gun. "Clayton Bennett, you're under arrest for—" Clayton fired. The bullet went wide, meant for Thomas, but hitting dirt. Chaos erupted. Clayton's men drew. The townsmen raised weapons. Sarah grabbed Emma, pulling her down. Thomas dove for cover, reaching for the children. Another shot. This one from Silas's shotgun, aimed at the sky. The boom silenced everything. "Enough!" The pastor's voice thundered. "No more blood, no more violence. Clayton, you're done. Turn yourself in or face every man here. Your choice." Clayton looked around. At Hayes' gun now pointed at him. At his own men hesitating. At the townsmen united. At Thomas, standing again unarmed but unafraid. He spat on the ground. "This ain't over." "Yes," Thomas said quietly. "It is." Clayton's face twisted. For a moment, Thomas thought he'd shoot anyway. Thought it would end in blood and smoke and more graves in cold ground. Then Clayton holstered his gun, mounted his horse, and rode off his men following like dogs with their tails tucked. Silence settled. Dust drifted. Slowly, people lowered their weapons. Hayes looked at Silas. "You got those witnesses to testify official." "I do." "Then I'll tear up this warrant." Hayes glanced at Sarah. "Ma'am, you're free to go, or stay, whichever you choose." Sarah's legs gave out. She sat hard in the dirt, shaking. Emma wrapped around her, and the other children piled on, all of them holding each other like they might disappear if they let go. Thomas knelt beside them. "You're safe now." Sarah looked up at him. Tears streaked her face. How did you... Wasn't me. Was them." He nodded toward the townsmen. "Folks get tired of being afraid eventually. Just needed someone to go first." Silas walked over, shotgun still in hand. "Thomas, that was either the bravest thing I ever saw or the dumbest." "Probably both." "Probably." The pastor smiled. "You did good. We did good." That night the house was full. Not just with Sarah and the children, but with hope. Real hope, fragile and new, but alive. Sarah sat by the fire, Emma's head in her lap, the other children sleeping around her. Thomas sat across from them, watching. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. "You already said that. I'll say it 1,000 times, and it still won't be enough." Thomas shook his head. "You don't owe me nothing. I owe you everything. No, you fought for this. I just helped hold the line." Sarah smiled through tears. "Then thank you for holding the line." Outside, winter pressed close. But inside, the fire burned warm, and for the first time in years, Sarah Bennett stopped looking over her shoulder. She was home. Morning came different. Not just the light or the cold, but the weight of it. Sarah woke without that jolt of panic, that instant calculation of how far they'd need to run today. She lay still, listening to the children breathe, to Thomas moving quiet in the kitchen, to the ordinary sounds of a house that wasn't hunting her. Emma stirred beside her. "Mama, I'm here. Are we really staying?" Sarah pulled her daughter close. "Yeah, baby. We're really staying." Emma's arms tightened around her. "I was so scared yesterday. When that man pointed his gun at Thomas, I thought, I know. He would have died for us. A stranger would have died for us. He ain't a stranger anymore." Emma pulled back to look at her. "What is he then?" Sarah didn't have an answer, not one that fit into words yet, so she just kissed Emma's forehead and said, "Go help with breakfast. I'll be there in a minute." When Sarah finally made it to the kitchen, Thomas had already cooked eggs and biscuits. The children ate like it was Christmas morning, talking over each other, laughing. James was demonstrating his slingshot technique. Anna was braiding Daniel's hair. Even Michael, still pale but recovering, smiled when Benjamin tried to steal his biscuit. "You didn't have to do all this," Sarah said. Thomas handed her a plate. "Seemed easier than teaching 7 kids to cook." "I could have helped." "Your arm's still healing." "It's been almost a week." "Still healing." He poured coffee. "Besides, I like it. Cooking for people. Gives me something to do besides talk to the horse." Sarah accepted the cup. Their fingers brushed. Thomas pulled back quick like he'd touched fire. Sarah felt heat climb her neck. "Thomas?" The door burst open. Silas Harper, minus his shotgun, but wearing the same determined expression. "Morning, folks. Mind if I come in?" "Already in." Thomas said dryly. Silas grinned. So I am. He looked at Sarah. How you holding up, ma'am? Better. Thanks to you. And those men yesterday, I don't know how to repay. Don't need repaying, just needed doing. Silas pulled out a chair. But I did come with news. Sheriff Hayes arrested Clayton this morning. Took him into Billings for trial. With 6 witnesses and your testimony, he'll likely hang. Sarah went cold. Hang. For Daniel's murder. That's what this is now. Not theft. Murder. I can't. You'll have to testify, Silas said gently. Tell what you know, what you saw, what he did after Daniel died. Sarah's hand shook. Coffee sloshed over the rim. Everyone will know. Everyone will hear. Everyone already knows. Thomas took the cup from her before she dropped it. They knew, they just didn't say. Now they're saying, you don't have to be ashamed of what he tried to do. I'm not ashamed. I'm angry. Sarah's voice cracked. I'm so angry I can barely breathe. Daniel was good. He was kind and gentle, and he deserved better than a brother who killed him over land and pride. And she stopped, chest heaving. I wanted him dead. When Clayton came yesterday, I wanted him dead. What kind of person does that make me? Human, Silas said quietly. Anger ain't sin, Sarah. It's what you do with it that counts. And you chose to live instead of seeking revenge. That takes more strength than pulling a trigger. Doesn't feel strong. Feels like cowardice. It ain't. Emma spoke from across the room. She'd stopped eating, was staring at her mother with fierce eyes. You kept us alive when you could have given up. You kept moving when everything hurt. You chose us over dying. That ain't cowardice. That's the bravest thing I ever saw. Sarah's eyes filled. She looked away, blinking hard. Silas stood. Trial's in 2 weeks. Hayes will send word when he needs you. Till then, rest, heal. Let these folks help you. He nodded to Thomas. You too. Town's grateful for what you did. We'll make sure Clayton's friends know to leave you alone. After Silas left the house, settled into quiet again. The children drifted outside to play. Emma stayed behind washing dishes with movements too careful, too controlled. You all right? Sarah asked. Fine. Emma. I said I'm fine. Emma scrubbed a plate so hard the pattern started fading. I keep thinking about Daddy. About how he died alone because Clayton didn't want competition. About how we could have stopped it if we'd been braver. You were 8 years old. Old enough to know something was wrong, old enough to speak up. And they would have ignored you, or worse. Sarah moved beside her daughter. You can't carry that baby. You can't spend your life wondering what if. Then how do I stop? Sarah didn't answer right away, just took the plate from Emma's hands and set it aside. Then she pulled her daughter close, holding her the way she used to when Emma was small and nightmares came calling. You don't stop, Sarah whispered. You just learn to carry it different. You let other people help hold the weight. Like Thomas. Like Pastor Silas. Like me. Emma cried then. Not loud, just these quiet, broken sounds that tore through Sarah's chest. She held her daughter and let her cry, and when Thomas appeared in the doorway looking concerned, Sarah just shook her head. He nodded and left them alone. Later that afternoon, Thomas found Sarah in the barn. She was trying to brush the horse one-handed, making a mess of it. The mare tolerated her attempts with patient annoyance. Need help? Thomas asked. No. He leaned against the stall. You're brushing her backwards. I know. She don't like it. I know that too. Thomas waited. Sarah kept brushing angry strokes that tangled more than smoothed. Finally, she threw this brush down. I don't know what I'm doing, she said. Any of it. Being a mother, being free, being here. I don't know how to just exist without running. Takes practice. What if I'm bad at it? What if I stayed running so long I forgot how to stand still? Thomas picked up the brush. Then you learn again, like everything else. You make it sound easy. It ain't easy, but it's possible. He started brushing the mare properly, long, smooth strokes. After Margaret died, I forgot how to do most things. Forgot how to cook food that tasted like anything. Forgot how to sleep without nightmares. Forgot what it felt like to want tomorrow to come. Sarah watched his hands move. What changed? You did. You and those kids. You reminded me what it feels like to be needed, to matter to someone. He glanced at her. Margaret would have liked you. You don't know that. I do. She had a soft spot for stubborn women who refused to quit. Sarah smiled faint. I ain't stubborn. I'm just too mean to die. Same thing. They worked in comfortable silence. Thomas brushing while Sarah organized tack that didn't need organizing. Outside, the children's laughter drifted through the open door. Inside, something shifted between Sarah and Thomas. Not romantic, not yet, just recognition. Two people who'd survived their own kind of dying, learning to live again. Thomas. Yeah. When the trial happens, will you come with me? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Even if folks talk, even if they think, let them think whatever they want, I'll be there. Sarah's throat worked. Why are you so good to us? Thomas set down the brush and turned to face her fully. Because somebody should be. Because you deserve good after so much bad. Because those kids deserve to see what kindness looks like without conditions attached. He paused. And because when I look at you, I see someone who fought like hell to stay alive. That's worth protecting. Sarah stepped closer. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Clayton hangs or walks free. I don't know if we stay here or move on. I don't know anything except... She stopped searching for words. Except what? Except I ain't scared right now. For the first time in years, I ain't scared. And that's because of you. Thomas reached out slow, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her cheek, gentle as prayer. You're safe here, Sarah. Long as I'm breathing, you're safe. She closed her eyes and leaned into his palm. Neither of them moved. Just stood there in the barn, with dust motes drifting, and the mare huffing soft, and the moment stretching into something neither could name, but both needed. Then Emma called from outside, and the moment broke. Thomas dropped his hand. Sarah stepped back. They looked at each other, awkward and aware, before Sarah hurried out. Thomas stayed behind, heart hammering, wondering what the hell he'd just done. That evening, Miss Agatha Winslow returned. Not with judgment this time, but with a basket of bread and a carefully neutral expression. Sarah answered the door, and for a long moment, the two women just stared at each other. Ma'am, Sarah said finally. Mrs. Bennet. Agatha held out the basket. I came to apologize. Sarah blinked. Pardon. I said things, cruel things. I judged you without knowing your story. That was wrong. Agatha's face flushed. I'm a bitter old woman who spent too much time worrying about what others think instead of doing what's right. You didn't deserve my scorn. You deserved help, and I failed to give it. Sarah took the basket slowly. Why now? Because Pastor Silas reminded me that Jesus ate with sinners and outcasts and broken people, and that if I claim to follow him, I best start acting like it. Agatha met her eyes. I ain't asking forgiveness, just offering bread, and whatever else you might need. Sarah studied the older woman, saw genuine regret there, saw pride swallowing itself for the sake of making things right. She nodded. Thank you. May I? Agatha hesitated. May I see the children? Sarah stepped aside. Come in. The children froze when Agatha entered. They remembered her judgment. Anna hid behind Emma. James's hand drifted toward his slingshot. Agatha knelt down, joints cracking. I owe you all an apology too. I called you bad luck. Said terrible things. I was wrong. You're not bad luck. You're children who deserve safety and love and full bellies. And anyone who says different is a fool. Benjamin, the smallest, stepped forward. You really mean that? I do. You ain't gonna try to take us away. No, child. I'm gonna help make sure nobody does. Benjamin considered this. Then he walked over and hugged her. Agatha went rigid with surprise, then slowly wrapped her arms around him. Her eyes filled. Thank you for not being mean anymore, Benjamin said. Agatha's voice broke. Thank you for giving me a chance to be better. After she left, Thomas found Sarah on the porch again. She was crying quietly, shoulders shaking. Sarah. She apologized. That awful woman apologized. And I don't know why that makes me cry harder than all the cruelty did. Thomas sat beside her. Because cruelty's easy to hate. Kindness is harder. It makes you feel things you thought were dead. Is that what happened to you when we showed up? Yeah, you woke up parts of me I thought died with Margaret. Sarah wiped her eyes. Does it hurt? Waking up? Sometimes, but it's a good hurt. The kind that means you're healing instead of just surviving. They sat in silence as the sun set. The children were inside playing some game involving string and laughter. The temperature dropped, but neither moved. Finally, Sarah spoke. When the trial's over and Clayton's dealt with what then, what do you want? I don't know. I spent so long running I never thought about what comes after stopping. Thomas turned to look at her. You're welcome to stay, long as you want. The house is big. Kids could use the space. And He stopped. You what? I like having you here, all of you. This house ain't felt like home in 2 years. Now it does. Sarah met his eyes. You sure 7 extra people's a lot. 7 extra people's exactly what this place needed. Thomas, I can't let you keep caring for us without what payment. Sarah, you don't owe me nothing. You and those kids brought life back to a dying place. That's worth more than money could buy. But people will talk. They'll say we're, let 'em talk. Don't change what's true. And what's true? Thomas chose his words careful. Truth is, you're the first person I've cared about since Margaret died. Truth is, those kids make me remember what it felt like to want to be better. Truth is, I go to sleep easier knowing you're all safe under this roof. Whatever folks want to call that friend family, something else don't matter to me. Long as you're here. Sarah's breath caught. Thomas, you don't have to say nothing. Just know you got a place here. Always. He stood and went inside before she could respond. Sarah sat alone, heart pounding, mind racing. She'd been so focused on survival, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted, not needed, wanted, chosen, valued for more than what she could provide. The feeling terrified her. 2 days later, Emma found her crying in the barn. Mama? Sarah scrubbed her face quick. I'm fine, baby. You keep saying that, but you keep crying. I'm just... Sarah stopped searching for words that wouldn't worry her daughter. I'm overwhelmed. Good overwhelmed, but still overwhelming. Emma sat beside her. You like him, Thomas? Emma, it's all right if you do. Daddy would want you to be happy. Sarah looked at her daughter. How can you say that? Because Daddy was kind. He'd hate knowing you spent the rest of your life alone because of him. Emma took her hand. And because Thomas is good to us, he's good to you. That's all Daddy would care about. You really believe that? Yeah, and I think... Emma hesitated. I think if we stay here, if we let this be home, maybe we can stop hurting so much. Maybe we can just be happy for once. Sarah pulled her close. When did you get so wise? When I had to grow up too fast. They sat together, mother and daughter, both carrying grief too heavy, but learning slowly to set it down. Outside, Thomas taught James how to fix the fence. Inside the house, Anna sang. From the loft, the twins' laughter echoed. It wasn't perfect. Grief still lived here. Fear still whispered. But so did hope. And maybe that was enough. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She got up, wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and found Thomas sitting by the dying fire. "Can't sleep either," she asked. "Thinking too much." "About what?" "About how fast things change. A week ago this house was empty, now it's full. A week ago, I was just existing. Now I'm—" He stopped. "Now you're what?" Thomas looked at her. "Now I'm living again. And it scares me." "Why?" "Because I got used to the emptiness. Got comfortable with it. And now you're here and those kids are here and everything feels different. And I'm terrified of losing it." Sarah moved to sit beside him. "I'm scared too. Scared of staying. Scared of trusting. Scared of letting my guard down and getting hurt again." "So what do we do?" "We take it one day at a time. We trust each other. We stop letting fear make our choices." Thomas nodded slowly. "I can do that." "Me too." They sat in silence, shoulders touching, watching embers fade to ash. Neither spoke again, but they didn't need to. Some things lived in silence better than words. Some promises were made without speaking. And somewhere in that quiet, two broken people started believing they might actually be whole again. The next morning a letter came. Sheriff Hayes needed Sarah in Billings in 1 week. The trial was set. Clayton was locked up, but his friends were talking. There were threats, whispers, promises of revenge if Sarah testified. Emma read the letter over Sarah's shoulder. "You're still going, right?" "I have to. Even if it's dangerous. Especially because it's dangerous. Someone has to stand up to men like Clayton. Might as well be me." Thomas appeared in the doorway. "I'm coming with you." "You don't have to." "I'm coming." His voice left no room for argument. "You, me, Emma. We'll leave the other kids with Pastor Silas and his wife. They've already offered." Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to say she could handle it alone. But the truth was she didn't want to be alone anymore. Didn't want to face Clayton without someone steady beside her. "All right," she said. "We go together." Emma smiled. "Together." Thomas nodded. "Together." And for the first time since Daniel died, Sarah Bennett stopped feeling like a woman alone against the world. She felt like someone who belonged, someone who mattered, someone worth protecting. The trial was coming. Clayton was waiting. The truth would finally be told. But today, in this moment, surrounded by people who chose to stand beside her, Sarah felt something she'd almost forgotten. She felt brave. The wagon ride to Billings took 2 days. Thomas drove while Sarah sat beside him, Emma wedged between them like a living shield. None of them spoke much. Words felt too small for what was coming. On the first night they camped under stars that looked like ice chips scattered across black velvet. Thomas built a fire while Emma helped Sarah wrap her still healing arm in fresh bandages. The wound had closed clean, but the scar would stay forever. Some marks didn't fade. "You nervous?" Emma asked. "Terrified," Sarah admitted. "Good. That means you're smart." Emma tied off the bandage. "Daddy used to say fear keeps you sharp. It's when you stop being scared that you get careless." Thomas poured coffee, handed Sarah a cup. "Your daddy was right. He was right about a lot of things." Emma stared into the fire. "I wish he could see this. See you standing up to Clayton. He'd be proud." Sarah's throat closed. "You think so?" "I know so. Daddy hated bullies. And Clayton's the worst kind, the kind that hides behind law and money and makes good people afraid to speak up." "That's changing now," Thomas said. "Those 6 witnesses, they're coming to Billings too. Sheriff Hayes made sure of it. Clayton can't buy his way out this time." Sarah wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that justice existed outside of fairy tales and scripture. But she'd seen too much to be certain. Seen too many men like Clayton walk free while women like her got buried in unmarked graves. "What if the judge sides with him?" Sarah asked quietly. Thomas looked at her across the flames. "Then we deal with it. But we don't run. Not anymore." Easy to say when you ain't the one on trial. I'm on trial too. We all are. Whole town's watching to see if doing right matters more than keeping peace. He set down his cup. But I'd rather fail trying than succeed by staying quiet. Emma leaned against her mother. We're with you, Mama. Whatever happens. Sarah wrapped her good arm around her daughter and held on tight. Across the fire, Thomas watched them both with an expression Sarah couldn't quite name. Not pity, not desire. Something gentler. Something that looked almost like hope. When Emma fell asleep, Sarah moved to sit beside Thomas. The fire had burned low, just embers, now barely enough light to see faces. Can I ask you something? Sarah said. Anything. Why didn't you ever remarry after Margaret? Thomas was quiet so long Sarah thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, Didn't seem fair. To Margaret, or whoever came after. How do you give your whole heart to someone when part of it's buried in the ground? Is that what you think I'm doing? Trying to give you half a heart? No. I think you're trying to figure out if you're allowed to be whole again. He looked at her. And I think you're scared that wanting something good means forgetting something you lost. Sarah's eyes burned. How did you know? Because I felt it too. Every time I laughed after Margaret died, I felt guilty. Like I was betraying her memory by not staying miserable forever. He paused. Took me a long time to realize she wouldn't want that. She'd want me to keep living, keep finding reasons to smile. Daniel was the same way. He'd hate knowing I spent 2 years running scared. Sarah wiped her eyes. But I don't know how to stop being scared, Thomas. Even now, even with you and Emma and those kids back home, I'm still waiting for it all to fall apart. Then we'll hold it together. You don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Sarah looked at him, really looked. Saw the lines around his eyes from grief and sun, saw the steadiness in his gaze, saw a man who'd survived his own kind of dying and chose to help her survive hers. What happens after the trial? She asked. If Clayton hangs? If we win? What then? Thomas reached over slow, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused warm. Then we figure out what living looks like. Without running. Without fear. Just living. I don't know if I remember how. We'll learn together. Sarah squeezed his hand. They sat like that till the fire died completely, neither wanting to let go, both afraid of what holding on might mean. Billings appeared on the horizon at noon the next day, bigger than Sarah remembered, louder. The courthouse stood at the center of town, 3 stories of brick and judgment windows, like watching eyes. People crowded the streets, all heading the same direction. Word got out, Thomas muttered. Everyone wants to see the show, Emma said bitterly. See if the poor widow can take down the rich man. Sarah's stomach twisted. She'd known the trial would be public, but seeing the crowd made it real. All those faces, all those opinions, all that judgment waiting to land on her shoulders. Thomas helped her down from the wagon. His hand lingered on her waist, steadying her. You can do this. I don't feel brave. Brave ain't feeling fearless. It's being scared and doing it anyway. Sheriff Hayes met them at the courthouse steps. He looked tired, older than he had a week ago. Mrs. Bennett, Thomas, Emma. He nodded to each. Trial starts in an hour. Judge Harmon's presiding. He's fair, but he don't suffer fools. What about Clayton? Sarah asked. Locked up. His lawyer's been spreading money around, but the witnesses are solid. Marcus and the others, they ain't backing down. Hayes paused. His friends are here too. Making noise, making threats. Stay close to me. They entered the courthouse together. Inside, the air smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. People packed the gallery, whispering behind hands, pointing at Sarah like she was some kind of exhibit. Emma grabbed her mother's hand and glared at anyone who stared too long. Thomas stayed on Sarah's other side, a wall between her and the crowd. His presence steadied her, reminded her she wasn't alone. Then she saw him. Clayton sat at the defendant's table wearing a clean suit and a smile that said he'd already won. He looked relaxed, confident. Like this was just another business deal he'd charm his way through. When his eyes found Sarah, his smile widened. Sarah's hand tightened on Emma's. Thomas leaned close. "Don't look at him. Look at me." She did, focused on Thomas's face instead of Clayton's smirk. Found something solid to anchor to. The bailiff called order. Judge Harmon entered gray-haired and stern-faced like weathered stone. He banged his gavel, and the trial began. The prosecutor was a thin man named Atkins Glasses, perched on a sharp nose, voice clipped and precise. "The territory calls Marcus Webb." The old rancher stood, walked to the witness stand, and swore his oath. His hands shook, but his voice held steady. "Mr. Webb," Atkins said, "tell the court what you saw on August 14th, 1873. Marcus looked at Clayton, then at Sarah. Then he spoke. "I saw Clayton Bennett spook his brother's horse, deliberate-like. Daniel was checking a fence. Clayton rode up, said something I couldn't hear. Then he kicked the horse hard in the flank. Horse reared. Daniel went down, hit his head on a rock, never got up." The gallery erupted. Judge Harmon banged his gavel. "Order, I will have order." Clayton's lawyer, a sleek man named Grisham, stood. "Objection. This witness has no proof of intent. The horse could have been startled by anything." "The horse was calm till Clayton kicked it," Marcus said. "I know horses. That animal didn't spook natural, it was forced." "Did you see Mr. Bennett kick the horse?" Grisham pressed. Marcus hesitated. "I saw his boot move, saw the horse react, saw Clayton smile after Daniel went down." "So you didn't actually see contact? You're speculating." "I saw enough." Grisham smirked. No further questions. 4 more witnesses testified. Each told the same story. Each admitted they didn't see the actual moment of contact, just the before and after. Grisham tore into them all, planting doubt like seeds in poisoned soil. By the time they called Sarah, the courtroom buzzed with uncertainty. She stood on legs that barely held her. Thomas squeezed her hand once before letting go. Emma whispered, "Tell the truth, Mama. That's all you can do." Sarah walked to the stand, swore her oath, sat down and faced the room full of strangers, deciding her credibility. Atkins approached gentle. "Mrs. Bennett, thank you for your courage. Can you tell the court about your relationship with Clayton Bennett?" Sarah's mouth went dry. She looked at Emma, at Thomas. Then she spoke. "He's my brother-in-law. Was married to my husband's brother." She stopped, confused. Started again. "My husband Daniel was his brother. After Daniel died, Clayton, he changed. Got possessive. Said I belong to him now." "What do you mean by possessive?" "He came to the house 2 days after the funeral. Said I couldn't manage alone. Said a woman needed a man's protection. I told him I didn't need protecting. Sarah's voice wavered. "He grabbed my arm. Told me I'd learn to be grateful eventually." Clayton's face remained blank, like she was describing weather instead of assault. "Did he threaten you?" Atkins asked. "Every day. Said if I didn't accept his help, I'd lose everything. The farm, the house, even Emma. Said he'd make sure I was declared unfit." "Is that when you ran?" "No. I stayed 2 months, tried to make it work. But he kept coming around, kept touching me when he shouldn't. Kept saying Daniel would have wanted him to take care of me. Then one night..." Sarah stopped, chest tight. "Take your time." Sarah breathed deep. "One night he came to the house drunk, forced his way in, tried to..." Her voice broke. "I fought him off, hit him with a pan. He left, but he swore I'd pay for refusing him. Next day the sheriff came with a warrant. Said I stole cattle, money, jewelry, all lies. But Clayton had witnesses, men he paid. I knew no one would believe me over him, so I took Emma and ran." The gallery murmured. Judge Harmon didn't silence them this time, just watched Sarah with something that might have been sympathy. Grisham stood for cross-examination. He moved like a predator, all smooth confidence. Mrs. Bennett, you claim my client assaulted you. Why didn't you report it? To who? His friends, the sheriff he pays. So you admit you have no proof. I have my word. The word of a desperate woman fleeing theft charges. Grisham smiled cold. Tell me, Mrs. Bennett, how many children are currently living with you? Sarah blinked at the shift. 7. 7? And how many of those are yours? 1 by blood, all by choice. So you collect strays, take in children who aren't yours. Some might say that's noble. Others might say it's suspicious. How does a woman with no income feed 7 children? I manage. By stealing. I never stole nothing. Yet you fled with 7 children, no money, no resources. How do you explain that? Thomas stood. Objection. This ain't... Sit down, sir, Judge Harmon said sharply. You're not counsel. Grisham pressed on. Mrs. Bennett, isn't it true? You've been staying with Mr. Thomas Callahan, a man you barely know. Living in his house, eating his food, accepting his charity. He offered? Convenient, isn't it? Widow finds a lonely rancher, moves in with children. Very convenient. Sarah's face burned. It wasn't like that. No. Then explain how a wanted fugitive ends up in the home of a wealthy landowner within weeks of fleeing prosecution. We didn't. Sarah looked at Thomas, saw anger in his face, saw him stand again. That's enough, Thomas said. His voice cut through the noise. You're twisting everything to make her look guilty when the only crime here is Clayton's. He killed his brother. He terrorized this woman. And you're defending him because he pays you to. Grisham's smile widened. And you're defending her because she's living under your roof. Tell me, Mr. Callahan, what exactly is your relationship with the defendant? I said that's enough. Judge Harmon's gavel cracked like thunder. Mr. Grisham, you will question the witness or you will sit down. Mr. Callahan, one more outburst and you'll be removed. Mrs. Bennett. His voice softened. Answer the question. What is your relationship with Thomas Callahan? Sarah met the judge's eyes. He saved my life, saved my daughter's life, saved 6 other children who had nowhere else to go. That's our relationship. He's a good man who did a good thing when everyone else turned their backs. Are you romantically involved? The question hung like smoke. Sarah felt every eye in the room, felt Clayton's smirk, felt Thomas's gaze, felt her own heart hammering. No, she said finally, but I'd be lucky if someday the answer was yes. The gallery gasped. Grisham looked triumphant. Thomas looked stunned. Emma smiled. No further questions, Grisham said smoothly. Sarah returned to her seat shaking. Thomas took her hand and didn't let go even when people whispered and pointed. The prosecution called its final witness. Sheriff Hayes. He testified about the warrant, the bounty, the lies. He admitted he'd believed Clayton at first, but changed his mind after talking to the witnesses. Why did you change your mind? Atkins asked. Because 6 men don't lie the same way unless they're telling the truth. And because I saw how Clayton looked at Mrs. Bennett when I tried to arrest her. That wasn't concern. That was ownership. And no man should look at a woman like that. Clayton's lawyer tried to discredit him, but Hayes held firm. Finally, Judge Harmon called recess. We'll reconvene tomorrow for closing arguments. Court dismissed. People flooded the aisles. Sarah sagged against Thomas. I ruined everything. No, you didn't. I told the whole town that you and I. You told the truth. There's no shame in that. Emma hugged her mother. You were brave, Mama. So brave. But Sarah didn't feel brave. She felt exposed. Raw. Like every secret she'd buried had been dragged into daylight and judged. They left through the back to avoid the crowd. But Clayton's friends were waiting. 3 men blocked the alley. Big men, mean-looking, armed. The leader stepped forward. Mrs. Bennett, we got a message from Clayton. Thomas pushed Sarah behind him. Get out of the way. Can't do that. See, Clayton don't take kindly to lies. And your woman in there lied real pretty. The man grinned. He wants her to know trial don't matter. He'll be free soon, and when he is, he's coming for what's his. She ain't his, Thomas said flatly. That's not what Clayton says. Says she's his by right. His brother's widow. His responsibility. His property. Say that word again, Thomas growled. See what happens. The man's hand moved to his gun. So did his friend's. Thomas didn't move, but Sarah felt tension coil through him like a spring. Walk away, Thomas said, while you still can. Or what you'll fight all three of us, if I have to. The alley went silent. Then a voice called out. He won't have to. He'll have help. Pastor Silas appeared at the alley entrance, shotgun in hand. Behind him, 6 townsmen, the same ones who'd stood against Clayton before. The 3 men hesitated, looked at each other, looked at the odds. This ain't over, the leader said. Yeah, Thomas replied. It is. The men left muttering threats. Silas lowered his shotgun. Saw them following you. Figured you might need backup. Thomas nodded. Obliged. That's what neighbors do. They show up. Silas looked at Sarah. You did good in there, ma'am. Real good. Sarah couldn't speak, just nodded. That night they stayed at a boarding house. 1 room, 3 beds. Sarah lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every word she'd said in court. You awake? Emma whispered. Yeah. What you said about Thomas, about being lucky, did you mean it? Sarah looked at her daughter. Yeah, baby, I meant it. Good, because I like him. I like how he looks at you, like you're worth something. I am worth something. I know, but it's nice when someone else knows it too. Across the room, Thomas pretended to sleep. But Sarah could tell by his breathing he was awake, could tell he'd heard everything. Tomorrow would bring closing arguments. Then the verdict. Then whatever came after. But tonight, in this small room, with her daughter beside her and Thomas nearby, Sarah felt something shift. Felt the weight she'd carried start to ease. Felt the future become less terrifying and more possible. She'd told the truth. All of it. Raw and painful and shameful as it was. And the world hadn't ended. Maybe that was enough. Maybe truth was always enough, even when it hurt. Sarah closed her eyes and for the first time in years, slept without nightmares. Morning came too fast. Sarah woke to Emma already dressed, braiding her hair with steady hands that betrayed nothing of the fear Sarah knew lived beneath. Thomas stood by the window watching the street below where people already gathered eager for the conclusion of entertainment they'd dressed up as justice. You ready? He asked without turning. No, Sarah said honestly. But I'm going anyway. The courthouse was packed tighter than the day before. People stood in the aisles pressed against walls, craning necks to see. Sarah felt their eyes like brands. Some curious. Some pitying. Some already convinced of her guilt or innocence based on nothing but gossip and preference. Judge Harmon entered, and the room hushed. Closing arguments. Mr. Grisham, you may proceed. Clayton's lawyer stood smoothing his vest. He spoke to the jury like they were children needing guidance. Gentlemen, you've heard testimony, witnessed accusations. But accusations ain't evidence. 6 men claim they saw Clayton Bennett kick a horse. Yet none saw actual contact. They saw a man approach his brother. Saw a horse spook. Saw tragedy unfold. But correlation ain't causation. He paced, hands clasped behind his back. Now we have Mrs. Bennett. A woman by her own admission living with a man she barely knows. A woman who fled prosecution. A woman who collects children like stray cats and expects charity to feed them. She claims my client assaulted her yet filed no report. Claims he threatened her yet has no witnesses. Claims he killed his brother yet offers no proof beyond wounded pride and desperate imagination. Grisham stopped in front of the jury. My client is a landowner, a businessman, a man of standing in this territory. Is he perfect? No. But he's no murderer. What he is a man trying to honor his brother's memory by caring for the widow Daniel left behind. And instead of gratitude, he receives slander. Instead of respect, he receives accusations. This trial ain't about justice. It's about a woman scorned using grief as a weapon. He sat down. The jury looked thoughtful. Too thoughtful. Sarah's stomach twisted. Atkins stood. Unlike Grisham's smooth performance, the prosecutor spoke plain. Defense wants you to believe 6 men conspired to lie about the same event. Wants you to ignore that Mrs. Bennet had nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming forward. Wants you to pretend that powerful men don't abuse that power every single day. He walked to the jury box. Daniel Bennet died because his brother wanted what he had. A farm, a wife, a life Clayton envied. So he took it. Not all at once. Slow, deliberate. He killed Daniel and called it accident. He terrorized Sarah and called it protection. He destroyed her reputation and called it justice. And now he sits here in a clean suit smiling because he thinks wealth and status make him untouchable. Atkins pointed at Clayton. But Sarah Bennet touched him. She stood up, testified, risked everything to tell the truth. Those 6 witnesses did the same. They broke their silence because silence protects the guilty and buries the innocent. This trial is about whether we reward courage or punish it, whether we stand with the powerful or the powerless, whether justice means anything at all. He returned to his seat. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harmon addressed the jury. Gentlemen, you've heard both sides. The charge is murder. The burden of proof is on the prosecution. You'll deliberate and return with a verdict. Court is in recess. The jury filed out. Sarah watched them go, trying to read their faces. Some looked troubled, some certain. None looked at her. How long do you think? Emma whispered. Could be hours. Could be days. Thomas stood. Come on, let's get air. They walked outside where the day was too bright, too normal, while Sarah's world hung in balance. People gathered in clusters, debating, arguing, placing bets on the outcome like it was a horse race instead of a man's life. Sarah found a bench away from the crowd. Emma sat on one side, Thomas on the other. They didn't speak, just existed together waiting. An hour passed. Then 2. The sun climbed higher. Sarah's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Whatever happens, she started. Don't, Thomas said. Don't start planning for the worst. Not yet. But if they find him innocent, then we handle it. Together. Emma took her mother's hand. He's right, Mama. We're together now. That changes things. Sarah wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that love and loyalty were armor enough against men like Clayton. But she'd learned the hard way that good intentions didn't stop bullets or legal judgments. 3 hours. 4. The sun began its descent. People grew restless, hungry, annoyed that entertainment was taking so long. Then the bailiff appeared. Juries reached a verdict. The courthouse filled again. Sarah's heart hammered so hard she felt sick. Thomas's hand found hers squeezed tight. Emma pressed against her side. The jury filed in. 12 men, faces solemn, avoiding eye contact. That was bad. Wasn't it? Sarah couldn't remember what she'd heard about juries and eye contact and what it meant. Judge Harmon spoke. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. Middle-aged, weathered, holding a piece of paper like it weighed 1,000 pounds. We have, Your Honor. What say you? The foreman looked at Clayton, then at Sarah, then back to the judge. We find the defendant, Clayton Bennet, guilty of murder in the 1st degree. The word guilty detonated like dynamite. The courtroom exploded. People shouted, some in triumph, some in outrage. Clayton lunged to his feet, face purple with rage. His lawyer grabbed his arm. Judge Harmon's gavel cracked again and again. Order, I will have order, or I will clear this room. Slowly the noise died. Clayton stood rigid, hands fisted, staring at the jury with naked hatred. Judge Harmon's voice was granite. "Clayton Bennett, you've been found guilty of murdering your brother Daniel Bennett. The sentence for murder is death by hanging. Execution will be carried out in 3 days' time. May God have mercy on your soul." Clayton's face went white, then red. Then he laughed, high and wild and broken. "This ain't over. You think I'm done? You think—" "Remove him," Judge Harmon ordered. Deputies surrounded Clayton. He fought them, still screaming. "You're mine, Sarah. You hear me? You'll always be mine. You can run to the ends of the earth, but you're still—" They dragged him out. His voice echoed down the hallway, fading into nothing. Sarah couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process that it was over. Actually over. Emma was crying. Happy tears, maybe, or relief, or just the release of 2 years of fear. Thomas pulled them both close, and Sarah buried her face in his chest and shook. People swarmed them. Pastor Silas grinning wide. Marcus and the other witnesses clasping hands, congratulating each other. Sheriff Hayes, looking 10 years younger, nodding approval. Miss Agatha Winslow dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "Justice," Agatha said. "Finally, justice." Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that looked like hope. Thomas guided Sarah to the wagon while Emma handled the well-wishers, thanking people with grace beyond her years. "We should get you home," Thomas said. Home. The word settled in Sarah's chest, warm and foreign and right. They collected the other children from Pastor Silas's house. The reunion was chaos. Little ones crying and laughing and talking over each other. James showing off a wooden horse someone had carved him, Anna singing a song she'd learned. Michael, still thin but recovering, threw himself at Sarah. "You came back." "Of course I came back. Promise you won't leave again." Sarah knelt, holding him at arm's length so he could see her face. "I promise, baby. We're done running. We're home now." The ride back to the ranch took 2 days, same as before. But everything felt different, lighter. The children sang songs, made up games, argued and laughed and acted like children instead of refugees. Emma rode beside Thomas, asking about horses and ranching and whether she could learn to rope cattle. He answered each question seriously, like her thoughts mattered, like she mattered. Sarah watched them and felt something crack open in her chest. Not breaking, opening, making room for something she'd thought died with Daniel. On the second night after the children slept and Emma drifted off mid-sentence, Thomas and Sarah sat by the fire. "Thank you," Sarah said. "You've said that. I'll keep saying it. You didn't have to do any of this. Didn't have to take us in or stand with me or risk everything for people you barely knew." Thomas poked the fire. "Margaret and I used to talk about what we'd do if we had kids, where we'd raise them, what we'd teach them. She wanted a house full of noise and laughter and mess. Wanted children running wild, bringing home stray animals, tracking mud everywhere." He smiled faint. "She'd have loved this. Loved them. Loved you. You don't know that. I do. Margaret had a sense about people. She'd see past your walls straight to your spine, and she'd respect the hell out of a woman who kept 7 kids alive on nothing but stubbornness and love." Sarah stared into the flames. "I don't know what happens now, how to just live. Without running, without fear. I don't know who I am when I'm not surviving." "Then we'll figure it out together. You, me, those kids. We'll build something new, not perfect, but ours. What if I'm broken? What if I'm too damaged to be whole again?" Thomas looked at her. "Sarah, you carried a dying child 9 miles. Fought off a man twice your size. Testified in front of a room full of people calling you liar and worse. Kept 7 children safe when most would have given up. That ain't broken. That's the strongest thing I ever saw." Sarah's eyes filled. "I don't feel strong." "You don't have to. I'll believe it for both of us till you catch up." She laughed through tears. "You're too good to me." "No, I'm just good enough. There's a difference." They sat in silence, shoulders touching, watching stars appear one by one. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote called. Somewhere closer, one of the children murmured in sleep. And somewhere inside Sarah, the last piece of armor fell away. Thomas? Yeah. What you said in court. About someday. About... She stopped, courage faltering. About being lucky if the answer was yes. Yeah. Did you mean it? Thomas turned to face her. Every word. I'm not ready. Not yet. Daniel's still too close, and I need time to heal, to figure out who I am without fear. But someday. Sarah met his eyes. Yeah. Someday. If you're willing to wait. Sarah, I'd wait forever if that's what you needed. But I don't think you need forever. I think you just need time to remember you're allowed to want things, allowed to be happy, allowed to love again without it erasing what you had before. How do you know that? Because I already did it. Margaret's still here. He touched his chest. Right here. Always. But that don't mean there's no room for you. Heart's got space for all kinds of love. Past, present, future. It don't run out. It just grows. Sarah kissed him then, soft and brief and terrified. When she pulled back, Thomas smiled. Too soon, she asked. No, just right. They returned to the ranch 3 days later. The house looked different, not physically, just right, like it had been waiting for them, like it knew this was where they belonged. The children exploded from the wagon, racing to explore reclaimed space-marked territory. Emma helped unload while Thomas tended the horses. Sarah stood in the doorway looking at the house that had saved her life. Miss Agatha Winslow appeared on the path carrying another basket. She'd taken to visiting weekly, bringing food and fabric, and slowly, carefully trying to atone. Welcome home, Agatha said. Thank you. I brought stew and fabric for curtains. Thought you might want to make this place your own. She paused. If you're staying. We're staying. Agatha smiled. Good. Town needs people like you. People who remind us what courage looks like. After she left, Sarah found Thomas in the barn. Agatha brought curtains, she said. That's so. I think she's trying to make up for being awful. Apology's one thing, changed behavior's another. Time'll tell which one she's offering. Sarah leaned against the stall. I want to talk about something. Thomas stopped brushing the horse. All right. Those kids, they need stability. Need to know they're not temporary. They're not. I know, but they need it official. Legal. I want to adopt them. All 6. Sarah's voice steadied. And I want us to raise them. Together. Not now. Not rushed. But eventually. When we're ready. I want this to be real. Thomas set down the brush. You saying what I think you're saying. I'm saying I want a future. With you. With them. With all of it, the mess and noise and chaos Margaret wanted. I want to build it here. Together. Thomas crossed to her, cupped her face in both hands. Then let's build it. This kiss was different. Not tentative, not scared, just certain, like a promise made and kept in the same breath. When they broke apart, Emma stood in the doorway grinning. Finally. How long you been standing there? Sarah asked. Long enough. Emma walked over, wrapped her arms around both of them. Does this mean Thomas is staying? If you'll have me, Thomas said. We'll have you. All of us. But you have to teach James to rope, and help Anna with her letters, and tell Benjamin stories before bed. And... Emma? Sarah laughed. He gets it. Just making sure. That night, the house was full again. Children ate and argued and played. Thomas told stories about his childhood, making them laugh. Sarah watched it all and felt her chest expand with something she'd almost forgotten. Joy. Simple, uncomplicated joy. Later, after the children slept, Sarah stood on the porch where she'd spent so many nights running through worst-case scenarios. Thomas joined her, coffee in hand. "You think Clayton's dead yet?" Sarah asked. "Probably. Sheriff said 3 days. That'd be today." "Good. You mean that—" "Yeah, he was poison. World's better without him." Sarah sipped her coffee. "Does that make me a bad person?" "Makes you human. Some people deserve mercy. Some deserve justice. Clayton got what he earned." Sarah nodded. In the distance, mountains rose black against stars. Somewhere out there, Clayton Bennett was gone. His threats were dust. His power broken. And she was here alive, surrounded by people who'd fought for her. "I never thought I'd make it this far," Sarah said quietly. "When I was running, I thought we'd die in some field, frozen, forgotten. I never imagined this. This, home, family, safety, you." She looked at him. "Hope." Thomas pulled her close. "You got all that now, and I aim to keep it that way. Promise?" "Promise." They stood together as winter pressed close and the fire burned warm inside. 7 children slept safe. 2 broken people held each other. And somewhere in Montana, under stars that had witnessed so much suffering, a new story began. Not perfect, not painless, but theirs. 6 months later, Pastor Silas married them under the cottonwood tree where Margaret was buried. It felt right somehow. Past and future meeting, blessing each other. Emma stood as witness holding Benjamin. The other children formed a circle, holding hands, grinning. Miss Agatha cried. Sheriff Hayes attended. Half the town showed up bringing food and well wishes. When Thomas kissed his new wife, the children cheered. When Sarah looked at her family, because that's what they were now, legally and completely her family, she felt the last piece of fear dissolve. She'd been hunted, broken, terrified, but she'd survived, more than survived. She'd built a life from nothing, found love in unexpected places, raised 7 children on courage and stubbornness, and now standing beside the man who'd opened his home and heart without hesitation, surrounded by children who'd chosen her as much as she'd chosen them. Sarah Bennett Callahan finally believed what Thomas had been telling her all along. She was home. And home wasn't a place. It was people. People who saw you at your worst and stayed anyway. People who held you when you fell and celebrated when you stood. People who loved you, not despite your scars, but because of them. That night, as she lay beside Thomas with children breathing soft in nearby rooms, Sarah closed her eyes and thought of Daniel. Hoped he'd approve. Hoped he'd be glad she'd found happiness again. And somehow, in the quiet of her heart, she felt his answer. Live, Sarah. Live big and loud and messy. That's all I ever wanted for you. So she did. She lived.